तेनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। As we saw last class, the topic, the Vedas are divided into Veda and Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. So Karma Kanda is the first portion of the Veda, and Jnana Kanda is what we call the Vedanta, which appears mostly at the end of the Vedas. And what appears at the end of the Veda are the Upanishads. And Upanishads ask a different question. Okay? Answer it, it's a different topic. The topic of Karma Kanda, the first portion of the Veda, is Artha, Dharma and Kama. Yeah? And the Dharma also includes not only that whatever you do, that one has to take into account ethics, but that also has to do with the journey of a jiva. Journey of a jiva is not only this lifetime, it is something which is going to continue for lifetimes. And so that means any action you do today, it is not only for today, but it is also for your future. So therefore, dharma pursuit also includes what? Doing good for not only this life but also life after, and also to then get what? Better janmas and better situations. Yeah. So according to us, this is not an end of life. The goal of life is not just to have better karma and then to have better janmas. The goal of life is not, that's not considered the end. The end is considered when you come to Vedanta Shastra. Because at one point in one lifetime you ask, okay, I do some good actions in this life and it will give me what? Some advantage. Some advantage not only in terms of what we think advantage means only wealthy family. It's not like that. One of the ways in which the advantage can appear is, you're born in a family where there is some comfortable, environment where you don't have to struggle to live. That is a blessing. Yeah? But that's not the only thing. The second way your advantage can appear is intellect. That you come in a family where there are people who are bright people, and not only that, they have they give you value for scholarship, they give you value for knowledge, they give you value for understanding things. That's a different kind of punya that you are born with, different advantage. Yeah. Then you can be born in a family where there are artists. It's a different kind of advantage. Musicians, painters, people who are creative people. So your advantage, or you can be born in a very simple family, not highly intellectual, not particularly talented, but with a lot of warmth, love given, a lot of attention given to you. The parents look into your eyes and give you confidence, and also you can be born in kind of a saintly family. So many people tell me, my father was an amazing human being, he was such a giver. So many of my people who come to me, they tell me that. Okay? Or their grandfathers, they were great philanthropists, whatever they had, they used to share. So that means there are lots of different kinds of advantages. So we have to take out from our mind that only the categorization that we make, privileged people and non-privileged people, is at some ways a very simplistic definition that we use. So that means you can come with so many tangible and intangible advantages. But the problem with this karma is, even if you come with the given advantage, there is no guarantee that that advantage will stay with you forever. So that means, let's say you come in a wealthy family, but at the same time, that wealth itself, so many people are born in some amazingly wealthy families, and over their lifetime they see what? A decline. Or you can be born in a highly intelligent family, but at the same time, you become so arrogant and you just start looking down on others. Waste of your intellect. Because the minute you start looking down on others, how are you making other persons feel when they are with you? Inadequate. The minute you are making anybody else feel inadequate or miserable, it can also vary in degrees, right? Depending upon your arrogance. Now, the laws are such that you will be put in the other side of the coin to experience how it feels to be put down. So that means that you came with an advantage. The very advantage gave rise to what? Some kind of a intellect and some kind of a position. But that position itself, what led to what? If you don't put things in perspective, it led to what? Your attitudes, which then are responsible for your own future decline. So that means life of becoming means there is no guarantee about anything. You can come with several advantages. Any time you can what? Lose all the advantages. And that means we keep going up and down. So this is what they say, samsara chakra means up and down, up and down. Even if you start with privileges, there is no guarantee that you will move forward. So therefore, this is what you, in any given lifetime, you understand that actually the end of life is, right now I do punya karma to get me some better place, but I am not really solving anything very fundamentally. Because those advantages will very quickly disappear, and like as you said, that imagine you have elevated yourself to be a dharmic person. Now, a dharmic person has become what? The base. Now you have to look for what? Something more. So that means this something more still continues. And then you can always be a little bit more intelligent, you can always be a little bit more rich, you can always be a little bit more talented, you can always be a little more saintly. That is no end. So therefore, all this which are our normal thinking that this is what I want to be a good human being, according to Veda, it falls within dharma. It doesn't fall in moksha. People mix up. Lot of people tell me, oh, my grandfather was a wonderful human being, I'm sure he got moksha. Hey, I said, moksha has got nothing to do with your being good. There are many human beings who are very good. That doesn't ensure moksha. That only creates what? The foundation for you to inquire about life. So this is where this Upanishad is a moksha shastra. You can't make it, you can't whole of Gita by some people who don't understand the Gita is taught as Dharma Shastra. Be good, do actions, don't think about results. The results you understand that it is according to some major big laws which are not in your control. All these messages are falling within what? Dharma Shastra. And actually Gita is a moksha shastra. So they miss the point. The whole book of Gita is a moksha shastra. And they have converted it into dharma shastra. Just messages about being good. Messages about being good. Then somebody will say, I am a good human being. I purposely don't hurt anybody. I don't harm anybody. I don't cheat people. I don't lie. I am a good human being. So why should I come to Gita? Because Gita is telling me to do that, I am already doing it. So that means in the vision of that person, Gita is for people who are not, they're the ones who are cheating, They are for ones who are lying. They are for because who they then need to be taught how not to do it. But Gita is not a book for people. Was Arjuna a liar? Was Arjuna a cheater? Was Arjuna was a highly exalted human being. He didn't need to be taught these kind of things. He was already a very, very evolved human being. So therefore, the Gita and Vedanta, Vedanta includes Upanishads, Gita, Brahma Sutra and some Prakarana Granthas. All of them are Moksha Shastra. Moksha Shastra means what is moksha? That is the question. When a question arises in your mind about these things, it is what we call Moksha Shastra. So Shvetashvara Upanishad begins with, he says, Brahma Vadinaha Vadanti. Okay? So here, at some given point in your life, you ask these questions. What are these questions? Kim Karanam Brahma Kutaha Sma Jata Jiva Kena Kamcha Sampratishta Adhishtitaha Kena Sukha Tareshu Vartamahe Brahma Vidaha Vyavastha. So at some given point, it starts with, here it says, starts with what is the nature of Brahman. But in reality, nobody has even heard of what Brahman. Who has heard of Brahman? Brahmana, if people have heard of. But Brahman is a different term altogether. So nobody is born asking about what is Brahman. Unless you have some previous samskara. But a person can ask about what is my true nature. And what Upanishads reveal is your true nature is not this little individual. It is what? Limitless Brahman. So that means somebody can ask the question what, because most of us live with one assumption that I am this individual. And anything that we do, whether you do psychology or you do healing or you do anything, right, or any normal engagement, it retains this assumption that what, I am this individual. And then this individual is fixed up a little bit. Wonderful. The individual needs to be fixed up. But every pursuit of our life is with one basic assumption that I am this individual. So that means the person who's asking this question, who am I? Am I just this individual or something more than this individuality, is asking a very big fundamental question. So therefore, this is what the first kind of the question that arises in the mind. Then he says what, here he says, Kutaha Smart Jata. So here he says, now is, where are we all coming from? So that is something that is bigger than life question. Right? Otherwise what, how do I get this, how do I get that, that is the focus. Now we are asking the question, where have we all come from? So here the question also then, because here it is in the context of Upanishads. So Upanishads talk about Brahman. So then he says here in this case, he asks, so what is his Brahman? Is it really the cause of the universe, or there is also some other cause of the universe? So that means it's the inquiry which is not about only yourself. Please understand. Lot of modern Vedanta makes Upanishads as inquiry into nature of life. Nature of self, then they somehow say, they use one prakriya. What is that prakriya? What we call Drik Drishya Viveka. So you say, okay, the body is something which is known to me, it undergoes change. mind is something which is known to me, it undergoes change, and if I was the changing thing, then I would never know, because I have already changed. But the very fact that I am able to know the changes, I myself, what?
Not changing.
Is not changing. That's a logic which is used. So that means they use this logic to arrive at the fact that I am a non-changing reality. And everything ends there. And you have missed the whole point. So that means just by doing that Drit Drishya Viveka is nothing much, you have to understand that. This Upanishad is making you ask, so then what have you solved really? Have you solved by doing this? Have you got an answer to the question, where did we all come from? How did this whole universe come? Have you? No. So you have to realize that if you are interested in the truth, this is not just, it's only a starting point. What you have to discover is a lot more than the fact that you are not just this body and the mind. It's a starting point. So therefore, Upanishad is also an inquiry into where did we all come from. So that means the nature of universe. Here he says, Jivama Kena Kamcha Sampratishta. What makes us all not only appear here, but there is a constant job being done in the universe to keep you alive. Constantly. So that means it's not like you were just made and then what? Constantly you draw from the universe. It's your interaction with the universe. Without the air, you can't survive. The air is external. Without the water, you cannot survive. Without the food, you cannot survive. So that means, even while you are here, in order to keep you alive, the universe has to continue to work. So here he says, what is it which makes everything work so that I can pass one more day? Right now, it's an ongoing thing. Not only from where we came, but what keeps us all going. Yeah? Then, Kutaha Jata Jiva Makena Kamcha Sampratishta. Even though the world is constantly changing, your cells in the body are changing, your organs are changing, the earth itself is rotating all the time. The sun it's actually, even though with reference to earth it is stationary, but it's still moving. The whole galaxies are moving. So that means in that constant change, what keeps everything as though stable? Sampratishta. What is it which keeps in a constant change, things which keep it all stable and predictable. So that means, now imagine, this is sun and this is the earth, and both are not only, earth is rotating in its own axis, but also is rotating around the sun, yeah, and this whole play is happening while both of them are also moving. For how long you try to get two objects to do all of that and move and keep the distance constant?
And like this billions of objects.
Huh?
Like this,
and like this, billions of objects.
Which are doing all this on each other. And
absolutely. So that means it's not just, oh, I am this. It is all silly. It's like a children. People treat Vedanta like children. Oh, I'll discover I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, then I'll be free, then I'm enlightened. This is all silly. These are big questions. What is it that is keeping the whole universe going? And then Kena Sampratishta, Adhishtaha Kena Sukha tareshu vartamahe. Now, so that means in this constantly changing universe, not only things are changing, but we all are having what? Our own experiences. Every jiva, every individual which is on this earth has one's own story of what's happening. What's happening to me, what is the nature of the world, what is the nature of the people that I deal with. That means we all, and there is no two story which is identical. Infinite stories. And in those stories, they are not just stories, they produce emotions. Depending upon the story that you tell, we have ranges of emotions. What kind of emotions? Happiness, then compassion, care, anger, sadness, hatred. So that means no matter what your story is, and your story is not same as his story, but what remains common is what? All of us experience these ranges of emotions. And those emotions, right? So here he is asking, what is the basis? But because those emotions are not totally identical and they also vary from what?
Degrees.
In degrees. So therefore, what is the rule? That is what he is asking. What decides? Who experiences what? Sukha and dukkha? Who and what governs? Who gets what sukha and who gets dukkha? A mumukshu is the one who asks what? These questions. Upanishad is what? Giving answer to these questions. So therefore, it is the subject matter of Upanishad is different from what the first portion of the Veda, which is what? How can I get better and how can I live with certain ethics? That is the question in the first portion of the Veda. Upanishad is about these questions. The questions are not only about oneself, there are three categories of questions. Who am I? What is the nature of the universe? Where did the universe come from? Where did I come from? What are the rules of the game in the universe? And who is the author of these rules of the game? So this is Upanishad. Now, the word Upanishad itself is indicating that. So here, there is, of course, a very essential part of the Upanishad is what? Knowing one's true nature. But knowing one's true nature also requires what? Knowing one's relationship with the world and the cause of the world. The word Upanishad itself indicates that. There is what we call the main root. The way Sanskrit language is, most of the words come from a root. And the root have what? Prefixes and suffixes. So this word Upanishad comes from the root Sat, Sadlu. If you look at the Dhatu Patha, the root is Sadlu, Sat. Sat root has three meanings. The first meaning of the root Sadlu is that which makes you gay.
That it makes you
Gay.
gay.
That is the first meaning. The second meaning of the root is that which makes you get rid of. And the third meaning of the root is that which totally, once you get rid of. So imagine you clean this room and you get rid of what? Dust or some garbage. Is it tomorrow, can you say now I've done it once, so therefore it is done? Tomorrow again dust will collect. So that means you get rid of once, but does it mean that you get rid of it forever? No. Here, the third meaning of Sadlu is that makes you totally disintegrate, where there is no coming back. So these are the three meanings of the root. That which makes you gain, that which makes you get rid of, and the third is what not just get rid of temporarily, but completely disintegrate. Now, what? What do you understand with this root meaning? Not totally, you can't tell what the subject matter is. So you need what? Two prefixes to give you a proper understanding of what the subject matter is. So here the two prefixes are upa. What is upa? Upa is what we call near. What is near? Now, the word near, what is near? It's what we call a relative word. Right? We say big. Big means what?
Relative to something.
Relative to something. So that means related to this table is big, but related to that table, this is small. So related to that cupboard, this table is small. So that means the word big is a related. Same thing with reference to near. Near is also a related word. What is near? Compared to the galaxy, Earth is near. Compared to in this Earth, right? USA, India is near. Compared to India, what? This Uttarakhand is near. Compared to Uttarakhand, Rishikesh is near. Compared to Rishikesh, Swami Dayanand Ashram is near. Compared to Swami Dayanand Ashram, this room is near. So that means it's all relative. There is nothing absolute about it. What is one thing which is not relatively near, it is always, you can never be away from it. Tell me.
Myself.
Yourself. So that means the subject matter of Upanishad is what? Myself. Something which is near. Which is so near, you can't be nearer, and it's not relative. Everything else can be relative, but here it is not relative. It's absolute. Yeah? So that means it is something to do with knowledge of myself. Now, all of us, before we know Upanishad, we all have some self-image. We have some opinion about what is the nature of I. So why do you need Upanishad? We already know. If I ask you, Anna, who are you? It's not like, I look at Upanishad and then answer the question. Everybody knows what they are. And then she'll describe something. I'll ask Pankaj, she'll describe, Gabby will describe, everybody will describe themselves. You just did in the thing of introduction. Yeah? So that means, then why do you need Upanishad? To know yourself, why do you need Upanishad? We all know ourselves, but we don't know it what we know it partially. We can't say that we don't know it at all. But we don't know it what Ni is the second prefix, Nishchayatmika. So that means it is a well ascertained knowledge about who I am. We all have knowledge of who I am, but that is not what well ascertained. Why is it not well ascertained? Because we make some errors, some very huge fundamental errors about our true nature. So Upanishad, through this process of inquiry, makes us see ourselves in a proper light. Yeah? And what will that, so what? Many people will ask, so what? This is all theory. What is you get to know some theory about what's your nature and all that. What will it do? So it will do these three things. It will make you gain what? Moksha. Moksha means the freedom that you are searching for. The freedom that you are searching for and your artha, dharma and kama pursuits are actually meant for what? Your freedom. But through them, can you ever find the freedom that you are searching for? You never find it. Neither anybody in the past has found it, nor anybody in the present, nor anybody in the future. Through artha, dharma and kama, it's impossible. So therefore, it will make you what? Gain the freedom that you are searching for. Now, by gaining that freedom, what is also then, what will you, the freedom cannot be gained until you get rid of what? It will make you get rid of what? Your sorrows, your smallness, your inadequacy, your feeling of helplessness, all that has to what? It will it will get rid of. But it is not like some therapy you come out and for temporarily you feel better and then you have to see the therapist again. So that means not only it will make you get rid of all these inadequacies, but it will totally disintegrate. Disintegrate where there is no coming back. Coming back because your understanding of the nature of I has undergone a very major shift. This shift is not ordinary shift, because in that understanding is also, if it was just Drik Drishya Viveka, it's a very small shift. But in that understanding of the nature of I, all these other questions are also involved. Where did this universe come from? By what it is sustained? By what governs our emotional life? All these are also the questions. And so therefore, when all these questions are answered and we tell ourselves a new story of who we are, why we are here, what we are doing here, what is the purpose of life, what is my true nature, that will help you to totally get rid of what? All these other problems. So this is what Upanishad is for. So Upanishad, so what? It is Ni is well ascertained knowledge about what? Something which is near to you, which is the nearest is what? So I, self, and what will it make you do? It will make you gain the freedom, and it will make you get rid of what? These inadequacies, limitations, lack, which is centered on I. And it is not just a temporary solution, it will make you get rid of it forever. Disintegrate completely. So what is this knowledge? That we will see in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.